And today we're going to talk about why most people don't achieve their goals, and it's true, most people don't. Well, why is that? Well, if you've decided on a goal that you want to achieve and you have ever probably written it down, but then you go on the internet and you start researching things, and the next thing you know, you're like somewhere else completely different than where you started out. You completely lost track of what you were intending to do and you didn't get your goal accomplished. So what happened? Well, basically, this is a lack of focus. You became distracted by social media, email, text messages, Facebook messages, YouTube videos, and basically internet marketing strategies. Ad infinitum, really. If it's any consolation to you, internet browsing has really been corrupted so that you become distracted. Basically, these marketers, they just want you to become a consumer. They want you to buy their products, case in point. And they've designed strategies to deceive you, to sway your behavior in their direction. So, in order to prevent this from happening, you must become ever vigilant and create a plan to stop you from falling for their ploys. So I really find it helpful to write down what I want on a piece of paper so that I don't get distracted, because it happens to everyone and it's not your fault. These marketers use psychology. They study human psychology and they know very well what they're doing, and they desperately want us to follow their little breadcrumb trail. Brendon Burchard, author, speaker, online marketer, he's an awesome guy. I love Brendan. He recommends taking back your morning routine by mapping out what really matters most to you. Really being very conscious and aware and deliberate on your morning routine so that you do not become distracted, because he says that studies show that people who master their morning set powerful intentions for the rest of their day. And by doing so, you will have a segment intention where you'll actually be saying, okay, when I walk through the door to this meeting, I'm going to bring this particular quality, like my presence, my joy, my humor, whatever it is, But if you don't take your morning, you will be on your phone. Like most people, when they get up, they just roll right over out of bed and grab their phone, completely out of just lack of awareness, completely out of addiction. And he says that if you do this, you will not master your day. And basically, you'll just be distracted all day long. You'll be kind of catering to other people's whims rather than living out your own very conscious, deliberate life. He also talks about people, like when he's a coach and he asks people about what's the first thing they do in the morning, and if they say they grab their phone, he knows whether they're living a life out of lack of awareness and conformity, or they are really deliberately, intentionally living their life. So he's a smart guy. I love Brendan. So the second reason basically people fail to achieve their goals is that they fail to realize that every subject is really two subjects. So it's like I have this desire to make a real lot of money, like I want to increase my income. And then the other flip side of it is I don't have enough money. So it's like there's two subjects, although it may seem like one. And what most people do is that they focus on the lack of something, the lack of whatever they want. And then because of the way the laws of the universe work, wherever they place their attention, the universe brings more of that. And it's a proven law. So, the whole key of knowing whether or not you're consciously creating what you want versus what you don't want is just to focus on how you're feeling. So, if you can really care about how you feel and then be able to focus on it, you can notice whether you're in joy and you're excited and you're like thinking about all these great ideas and you feel like you're in the flow, just, oh, I feel so good. Or you're like frustrated, you're impatient, you're worried, you may even be fearful, you may feel disconnected. These are all signs that you are not where you need to be. You're actually in a closed state and you're blocking your ability to manifest what it is that you desire. So focusing on the feeling is very key. And I learned this from Esther and Abraham Hicks. It took me a little bit of time, but if you don't always know whether or not everything you read or hear is the truth. It takes a little bit of time to you kind of test the waters and see, but I promise you that this is very real. And if you begin to pay attention to how you feel, and then you start to notice, like when there's times where you feel really good and you're very connected with your inner being, and that part of you knows a lot of things. It has infinite intelligence. So if you can really feel connected to that part of you, not the surface mind, not the part of you that's, worried about what other people think of you. And, the part that's worried is not your inner being. Your inner being just knows. That's kind of like your gut feeling, the part of you where you hear that little voice inside your head that tells you to do something or not to do something. That's your inner being. It has an intelligence and it's always right. It's always right. So listening to that inner being is so essential. And that's what we're learning to do. We're learning to trust that part of us that knows the answers to these problems or issues that we have in our life. Helps us to manifest what we truly want to have in our lives, what we truly desire. And we're always expanding. We're always growing. We're always wanting more of a greater experience because we're infinite beings. If we were limited, it would be boring. If we got it all and that was it, we'd be bored. So there's always more to learn. We're always growing. So we need to get into a gentle alignment with our desires. And how do we do that? Well, we're paying attention to how we feel for sure. But it's not a forcing and it's not a pushing and it's not a driving towards our goals. Like I have to get this done. But it's really just being very gentle. It's kind of like if you can think of a time where you had an idea about something that you wanted. It's probably something small. And you didn't really have a lot of pressure on you to get that thing. It wasn't like, make or break your life. It was just something that you just thought would be fun to have. And then, the period of time is not that critical, but it probably didn't take that long. And all of a sudden it showed up and you didn't really have to try all that hard. I mean, it just showed up. It's because you were in this easy, gentle alignment. So that's what we want to do when we want to see our desires come to fruition, is be very gentle and align with ourselves so that there's nothing within us that's preventing us from reaching our target. It's definitely a practice. This is really called just conscious co-creating because we're not really doing it. It's the universe is doing it. We are setting our desires and intentions to have this come about in our life, but we didn't really make it happen. We were part of the process of it happening, but it was the universe that really did do the work. So I've got these takeaways for you, about reaching your goals and how to do it. I would say, focusing on your goals daily and evaluating, whatever we measure, we tend to achieve. So if you're not really being very conscious about your goals, if you're not really looking at them and seeing, am I closer or further away? Did I do what I said I was going to do, or did I slack off? Just being very conscious and just measuring, am I on track? That really does help. And so you're going to give yourself time every day. And I like to say, if you give yourself a numerical score, it helps you just to really realize, am I on target? Not in a judgmental way, but just to have a conscious awareness. I would say also just continuously continuously be aware of how you feel. Another key. I know that if the more you can really understand that the way you feel, if you're happy and you're joyous and you're feeling full of energy and life and zest and wow, this is fun. Having fun, you're on target. And if you're feeling frustrated and you're disappointed and you're impatient, like, why isn't that here now? Those kinds of things. Or if you are doubting that it's going to happen, those are killers, total killers of your desires coming to you. So if you can be conscious and aware and realize that though the feeling is really the key, and if you're finding yourself in a negative emotion, then for sure you can stop. And what I recommend is, if you're really in a bad state, because you're new to this, you're really like on a downward spiral, and it seems like the ceiling is collapsing in, then go take a nap. Like, that's the best thing. You can wake up and start anew. Or if you're someone who can meditate, that's even better in some cases, because you're putting your mind in a still place and you're open and receptive. And it's a spiritual practice for sure. And I do recommend doing it every day. It's so incredible. First thing in the morning is when I do it. Sometimes I only have 5 minutes. Sometimes I have issues with my dogs barking, and then it's like my dogs bark very loud. So it's hard, but sometimes I also force myself to sit and meditate right through the barking, because this is, of course, there's no one else to be bothered, but I use it as a way to discipline my mind so that I'm not in aversion, I'm not hating on that sound, but I'm just neutralizing it. It's a practice so that when I come into, my daily life and I meet with an experience that bothers me, I come into that neutral place. And then I also practice breathing exercises that obviously bring in more oxygen into my body and uplift my mind, my mental state, and exhilarate me so that I feel powerful and productive. But it also allows me to recognize that I do have control over myself and the way I think and the way I view the world. My perspective can change. And that's very powerful. I'm not the victim of circumstances. I'm not the victim of conditions. I'm not the victim of what's happening now. I can actually choose a different feeling, a different thought, and circumstances can change from me feeling differently, which is really interesting. That's like quantum physics 101. I would also say that I can also choose to use my vision in such a way where I place my awareness on my third eye and I can recite a mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. And this is especially helpful if you're facing something difficult, where you're like totally in aversion. You don't like it. You don't want to go through it. You don't want to be where you're at, So it's great because it first of all, it distracts your mind off of what you don't like. So that's in itself is powerful. But the words themselves are, I'm bowing to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is known as the destroyer. And so in essence, you are eradicating that which you don't want, but in a positive manner, because you're bowing to this deity that is all powerful. So I like that, and it works for me, and it is powerful. And that combined with the breath is a powerful practice. And so these are just a few things that you could do that I want to pass on to you. So morning routine, creating a morning routine for yourself. First thing I do, I roll out of bed, and I know I have to go right onto my meditation mat. Well, for me, it's a chair. I sit in a chair. But it's the same chair every time. I don't use a different chair. It's always the meditation chair because it carries a specific energy about it. If you use a chair that you use for something else, it'll carry the energy of that other thing and it will distract you. So it's important to be very conscious and awake what you're doing. So I meditate anywhere from, usually it's 20 to 25 minutes, something like that. And I focus on my breath. And sometimes I read some sacred text beforehand. Sometimes I contemplate. Sometimes I speak to angels, to spirit, to angelic beings, to the Arcturians, whoever it is. And sometimes I do yoga. I do a little yoga stretches every morning pretty much. I do the breathing exercises. And I also focus on eating very nourishing foods that will help with my mental acuity. So I don't want to eat grains and things that will cause my mind to have brain fog. I use foods that are rich in chlorophyll. I have my smoothie every morning, and I also do a plant-based shake with reishi and various mushrooms and herbs in it. This really helps me to feel very good for a very long time. Finally, I'd like to mention, use the power of declaration for your morning or even your day, but I think it's important to realize that if you're going to achieve your goals, you have to realize it's going to happen now, not a year from now. It's happening now. So you need to repeat after me, this is my time. This is my time. Know that you are more powerful than you think you are, and remember that the journey of 1,000 footsteps begins with the first step. So you must take action daily and pay attention to what you're thinking and how you're feeling. Most importantly, how you're feeling, and you will indeed achieve your goals. Quickly might I add. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next time.